Hey everyone, and welcome back to the HOG-POD. We're here in Scotland to record a special series which we've called The Road to Thunder. The Dunedin chapter, based out of Edinburgh Harley-Davidson, will be very shortly kicking off the largest chapter run event in these islands. And you know what it is, it's Thunder in the Glens. So we arrived yesterday, and I can only describe one of the most brutal rides I've done in quite some time, from Stranraer right across Scotland up to a little place called Netherton, which is where we are now. And just in the background there, you'll see a stone cottage, and that is the ancestral home of the Davidsons. And we thought we'd start the Road to Thunder series here because effectively this is where Harley-Davidson started way back in the day. If you remember the Sportster S and its launch back in 2021, those of you that are eagle-eyed will recognise that this cottage was part of that promotional video where Jochen and Bill Davidson came to Scotland. They were welcomed here by Ewan McGregor, obviously rode through some beautiful roads here in Scotland, and then arrived here to come and see really where it all started. We're going to be speaking to Mike Sinclair, who is one of three people that effectively bought a pile of bricks and slate, and through a labour of love restored the cottage to what it is today. In addition to that, we'll be speaking to a lady called Nairi, who has been working round the clock and continues to work around the clock for this here, the Davidson Legacy Preservation Group, which is a charity aiming to secure the future of this cottage, to make it a historical and cultural sort of centerpiece in Scotland for bikers of today and tomorrow to come and visit.
Built in 1722, and it was only as high as the tops of the windows there. You can see the green stone above it. Yeah. When the Davidsons were here, they raised the roof by about 18 inches to allow them to put bedrooms up the stairs. So they pulled in Carmiley stone, that is the green stone, and that's the same stone that the slates are made out of. There's about 40 tons up there. One of my friends laid all the slates on there, but we had to, he said, if you get them up there, we'll lay them. So I thought, oh, that's great. Yeah, every Sunday after that, rain or shine up there and lifting them up. The ones at the bottom are up to about here. You're only seeing about a third of them. Big coverage on them, like, and they're really heavy, really heavy. So yeah, I'll show you inside. No electricity, no toilet. She was using the old stove. That's another one that's replaced the old one. We've still got the old one when the Davidsons were here. And I think the charity are going to do some kind of thing at Sturgis with it eventually, auction it off or whatever. But it couldn't be used. Sorry?
We're going to Sturgis next year.
Oh, right, good. Well, there's actually a slate off the cottage at Sturgis. Harley bought a piece of ground there for the 75th. They call it the Riders Point or the Rally Point. And on there's a big kind of stone kind of standing there with Harley-Davidson logo on it, and you'll see a slate off the cottage there. It's the original flooring here. We could have got better slabs than that, but fortunately when Jean was here, she was walking about saying, this is where my ancestors walked, you know. So it's the genuine original flooring here. Like I say, we replaced the stove, but it's a local stove. It was sold in Dundee. It's got a maker's marking from Dundee, but we found it down in Norwich.
So what year did that go back to then?
That is round about 1810, 1820.
Wow.
Yeah, round about then.
It's a lot of work in that, won't it?
And it would have, well, in fact, this is where it heated its water, a bit at the side there. But that's the original tap off the stove that's out in the garage, which we're going to send over to Sturgis or whatever. When Jeff Davidson was here, he was sitting in that chair holding onto the tap, and the tears were rolling down his cheeks. It really got to any of the family members, in fact, that have been here. It's really affected them, and you'll probably see that on the video that Harley did about 3 years ago when Bill was here and Jochen, and Bill, when he came out the cottage, like, was visibly moved, kind of thing. In fact, the first thing he did was he said, I must phone my dad, like, so he phoned Willie G. And so 1851, on the census, there was 10 people living in here. There was Sandy and Margaret, 6 kids that had survived. I had 8 kids in all. Nothing to do in Scotland in the wild. Yeah. So yeah,
Sounds like my family.
6. Yeah, Sandy, Margaret, 6 kids, and then 2 workers from the blacksmith shop that was just down at the foot of the hill there. He was a Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, like he made cart wheels, he would have done anything timber.
Hence the wheel outside.
Yeah, yeah. So he would have done anything timber to do with the blacksmith shop. And I found from a relative of the original Wright that was here, it was a big estate, Lord Minto's estate. He owned like acres down south and up here kind of thing. I don't even know whether he would have come up here, you know, he just owned it. But the original Wright wrote to the laird and said, I'm a Wright, you've got a blacksmith shop, you don't have a Wright, so can I be the Wright for the estate? And they said, yeah, we'll build a cottage, it'll cost £30 to build, so you pay that, then you pay a rent every year, and then when you leave you get your £30 back. Her husband had died and she had 2 kids, and she went over to America in 1843. Quite a kind of intrepid thing to do, because ships at that time had only just been told, I think it was 1822, that the captains were told that they had to write down who was on their ship. Before that they didn't, and if you died you just got heaved over the side, you know. So she went over with 2 kids, and that's the whole reason that Harley-Davidson are in Milwaukee, because that's where she ended up. And then wrote back to these folk and said, if a man can do an honest day's work, America's the place to be. So that's the only reason they left, but there was hundreds of thousands of Scots folk going over to America, Canada around about that time. I'm pretty sure the kitchen would have been the engine room. Margaret would have got up early in the morning and get the fire on kind of thing. And but I'll show you a picture of Sandy and Margaret. We got this from Jean, probably around about 2010, I think. We got that from Jean. And she said this picture was taken when they arrived in America.
What year was that?
1858. And the folk that lived there weren't any customs, there weren't any police there, but they used to see the sails coming, and they'd go around and tell everyone, oh, there's a ship coming in, kind of thing. And instead of going with a big kind of welcome cards and stuff like that, they went with clubs and anything that they could find to beat these folk up and take all the belongings. So that was your welcome at that time, you know. And you imagine taking, like they did, 6 kids. They had Margaret's mother, Sandy's mother-in-law, because she went over to just outside Milwaukee, started trading with 5 different tribes. She was the only white woman there at the time, and she did okay, and then wrote back to these folks saying, if you can do an honest day's work, then America's the place to be. And the kids, in fact, Sandy and Margaret were pinning all their hopes on Alexander Jr. He was 18 when they went over, him there, but he died a month after they landed. So yeah, but Jean showed me the death certificate, and the doctor had signed it as ship's fever. It was actually William C. He was 11 years old when they left here, and it was him that built the shed in his garden for his sons to start the company. The shed was still there in 1974, believe it or not. Yeah. I asked Jean about it, because where would it go? I mean, they wouldn't just go, oh, we'll need to get rid of that shed. It's not doing anyone any harm. But she said it was there round about 1974, round the back of Juno Avenue, and they asked one of the workers to go around and get something from behind the building, but he didn't go. He sent his son round, and his son went around with either a forklift or some kind of handler, and the shed was in the road, so he just trashed it to get to what he was wanting to go. So it could still have been there, you know. It's a real shame. The weird thing is, Jean was going, oh, what was his name, what was his name, what was his name? And she said, I know his second name was Norton. And I went, you're kidding. No, his second name was Norton, don't know what his first name was. So they were all working, they were pattern makers, so Sandy was working with timber, making cartwheels and stuff like that. William C. was a cabinet maker, he was making furniture, some of which one of the relatives we know has found in Milwaukee. She's been looking for some of the furniture that he made. He had, in the basement of his house, pretty near Juno Avenue. He had his workshop there, but then Bill Harley and Arthur Davidson come in with push bike frames and stuff like that. That was the reason that he built the shed. He said, "Look, we need you out of here." They had a jar in there that they were collecting money to start the company. They thought, you know, folk will buy these, you know, so started putting money in a jar, which got stolen. So they went to their uncle, and guess where he came from? Stirling in Scotland. He wrote out a promissory note, and I think it was $172 or something like that. But I've held it in my hand. We're over, the last time we were over was 2015, and the guy that runs the museum said, there's stuff come in from the Harley family. They were putting stuff into the museum instead of having it lying about at home. And he said, you'll know what that is. And it was a piece of paper that size, and it was a promissory note for starting the company. And a lot of folk don't know that it was a Scottish guy that paid to start it. Something else he handed me was an A4 sheet of paper, blueprint with an engine, and it was 1-to-1. I said, is that full size? He said, yeah, it's a full size on an A4, and that was the first engine that Bill Harley drew for going in a push bike frame. I think it was only, I can't remember, it was under 200cc, and it wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding, you know. So the next year they doubled the size of the engine and bent the frame, so they thought, we'll need to build a frame that'll stay together, you know. So that was the progression for them actually starting. There's a visitor's book there if you'd, that's good, yeah.
So we are here at the Davidson Cottage, and we've just had the Air Valley guys leave. Mike's just given one of his tours, and tell you what that man doesn't know about Harley and the history of this place, he's probably forgotten more than I know. Really interesting guy. Next here we have one of the organising minds behind this year's Thunder. Vicky, you are literally 24 hours away from Thunder. How are you feeling?
Not too bad, actually. A little bit nervous, but I think like most of the crew are already up there, and you can see the photos coming through with the infrastructure, and the tents are up, and it's not raining yet today. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think we're feeling okay. It's just that apprehension of like if it's like the gates opening tomorrow and people starting to register. So yeah, good.
How has the last 3 months been?
For me, just because I focus more on the marketing and the social media side, it's felt a little bit slow to kind of confirm some bits and things. But the last week, it's just like my phone's pinging non-stop. It's like tagged here, tagged there, tagged there, people getting ready. Like yesterday, there was like nail shots of people with their Harley-Davidson like nails all over the place. So yeah, it's felt a bit of an ease in, but it's just been crazy the last week.
How's the rest of the crew feeling?
I think they're all right. They're just so like head down and in it now. I think it's been a case of, right, have we gotten everything? Have we packed the bags? Have we put the banners in the right place? Have we got the toilet showing up? So it's like checklists. I think the rally's been so well run in the past. Like it's the same people that are doing aspects of it, and they know to show up and put up the fencing and that things happen. But it's just making sure those tick boxes are kind of done. But yeah, they'll be enjoying it tomorrow when they start to see more people arrive.
Of course. And when do you get to relax?
So the issue is, on Saturday we're releasing 2025 tickets, so I think I'll relax in about a month's time when they close. It kind of feels like my work starts now. So like for the next few weeks I'll be getting press photographs through and trying to push 2025. So yeah, in about a month's time I'll be able to sit down and relax.
3 years ago, I got involved with the group that were trying to save the future of the cottage. They weren't an official group, they were just a bunch of bikers, I got told, that were needing a bit of help and guidance. And because I've done a lot of things like campaigning for secure motorcycle parking when I lived in Aberdeen and doing lots of other things over the years and been biking for years, I was sort of nudged in the direction of go and see what it's about. Never been to the cottage before, so I popped it online, I went to this whole meeting and I was like, you know, cut to the chase, you know, done loads of fundraising over the years, can you just tell me how much we need to raise? When they said 320,000, I kind of went, whoa, that's a lot of money, you know. So I was like, okay, right, that's doable, you know. I was still on the fence going, I can give them some guidance and I'll just walk away. That'll be easy. And when we came to the cottage for a meeting, we met in the annex, I got to have my first tour of the cottage. And I walked into the building on my own and was walking on the flagstones, looked at the stove, looked around and went, yeah, this is pretty cool. We need to save this. I'm not a history person. Am I allowed to swear? I'm gobshite. And that's what I'm well known for. So for something to actually tug at me like that was like, nah, this needs done, you know. And that was my motivation, was that first day walking through the doors. Because I'd heard about this for years, you know, people had been, got friends that rode Harleys. I mean, I have a Harley by default because I'm a shorty, you know, so I went from a Gigster Thou thinking, I'm getting old, my wrists are getting sore, you know, I'm going to lose my license, I need to slow down, all this kind of, you know, responsible stuff. So I went and got a old 883 Harley Sportster and thought, great. I was going to look at like a Suzuki Intruder because I had one of them before, but the Harley came up, so I bought that. So it was kind of like destiny that I'd bought this Harley. People are giving me a nudge going, the cottages, you know, need some help. All these kind of things were falling into place. So after coming here, I followed my heart and used the knowledge I had, and what I didn't know, I asked. And we've created something really special. It's taken a long time. We're at 3 years now. The first year was gathering people around that were interested, finding out what time they had available to dedicate, who had what skills, and then from that we registered it as a Scottish charity. So we got registered with Oscar in December 2022, and so that was a huge moment for us. And then moving from there, we spent the next year concentrating on raising awareness and fundraising, because obviously if we don't raise funds ourselves, no big funders are going to give us money. So because we have to prove that we're sustainable. So that then led on to us then doing big funding applications. Sorry, big funding applications, and the big one was the Community Ownership Fund with the UK government. We got knocked back first time round with that. We had to look at our plans, see if we could, you know, strengthen it a little bit. They give us hints and tips. So we went back, you know, a bit disheartened, but we went back to them and said, right, come on, you know, we've got this. We know what we're doing. We've got a 5-year plan, you know, to take it to its next level, and that's what we're going to do. So we put in for the 250,000 capital funding. We need 320 for this. So, and then we've also put in for 49,900 of revenue funding, which will then pay for the project worker to oversee this, because one of our big problems is that this is closed. It's only open when the current owners can be here, and if they're not feeling well because they want to retire and they don't live nearby anymore, it's a big issue, you know, especially if people are popping past, all they're seeing is the view from outside, which is nice, but it's still that first feeling of when you walk through the doors. So for us, we want to have people coming in and experiencing, you know, what it's got to offer, that, you know, step back in time. So with that, that'll help pay for conveyancing things. So this year has been very much about focus. So that was awarded in December 2023. So this year's focus has been very much about raising that match funding. So we didn't put our cart before the horse. So we waited until we knew we had that secured before we started looking for the match funding. So National Heritage Lottery application has gone in. There was a bit of delay on that because they changed the structure. So we've put in for our match funding, and we've also put in for funding to help repair the access, because it's not just about buying the cottage and us just sitting with it and running it as is. It's about taking it to its next stages, making it more accessible, having it available to the community, really building on that community-led tourism, like what we did with the poker run, where we had participants, riding all around Angus to different destinations and enjoying the scenery, enjoying what different venues have to offer, and then coming back here and doing that sort of celebration. So we've always got A, B, C, and D plans. Our priority is the funding. We're sitting waiting on, the yes or no from the current application that's in. My game plan is a crowdfunder just for the 70,000. It means we can't fix the access, we can't improve the drainage and things, and damage might happen to the cottage again. The year that in the November when we had really bad rains, the fields nearby flooded and mud wiped right through this building, and we were out with shovels slipping around everywhere. Mike was in cleaning this floor for 2 weeks because it's a wooden floor on this side. So it's a case of so all those kind of things, and it's like it's gonna go to wreck and ruin if we don't buy it. The funding side of it, will, really improve that, getting that road done. That will get the drainage put in, so that will divert that water somewhere else, so it doesn't come this way. So it's all those kind of little bits and pieces. If that doesn't happen, as I say, what will happen is we'll crowdfund for the 70K to try and at least secure it and get it into our hands and let the volunteers help look after it as best we can. Yeah, we're all volunteers. So, and as you know, I've been doing my part-time, degree, work full-time, family, all that kind of stuff, plus, doing all this. So, but we've got a good team. The volunteers are amazing. The trustees are brilliant. They've got amazing skill sets. The amount of times that I've said, I want to do this, and they tell me I can't, and it's so frustrating. So it's about, we've got rules to follow. We've got to keep within those rules. Yeah. But so it's not just, a bunch of idiots, well, maybe, but, it's not just a bunch of idiots that are trying to, have a good time here. There's a whole purpose to it. We've got lots of ideas. Loads of ideas from the community of visitors and things that have come up. Some people saying that we should hire it out and do let somebody do their like motorcycle maintenance in there. There's loads of bits and pieces. You could be doing youth work in there and teaching people how to maintain their motorcycles and all this kind of stuff. The other side of that though is we need to think about our sustainability. So for us going forward, we need to be able to be self-sufficient. And by that, one of the big aims is to start doing events and weddings. So this becomes a venue that people can hire for many different reasons, not just weddings. The idea is that we're going to be similar to, like Gretna Green. So you can imagine the anvil that they have. Well, if we could get a Harley engine, to act as our anvil, we could be having the wedding ceremonies here and giving somebody, a really unique ceremony. And then hopefully being able to have the shed used either as the ceremony, or they can get married in this room, depending on the size of the party, and then they could be having their reception in the shed. Anybody that stands near me generally finds out all my plans in a one go. So the plan for that is, and as soon as they walk in, I'm like, see these walls? I want to knock them down. So I want to open up the space, and I want to turn it into kind of an American diner cafe, so that way you've got your seating around your breakfast bar type thing. People can come in, sit down, have coffee, and there's of course the gable end with the beautiful window looking over the countryside, where you can sit down and just sit there and chill, have a bacon roll, have some homemade soup, things like that. And, everybody knows about my cookies, so have some home baking, all those kind of things. And just, really cheap and cheerful, nothing, we're not talking about putting a, proper restaurant in, but somewhere, that this place actually becomes a destination. So it doesn't matter how far you've traveled, whether you've ridden or you've driven, it's a case of, it's somewhere where you can go, relax, spend a couple of hours in the Angus countryside, and really appreciate that heritage and history of where Harley-Davidson came from, And for me, it's that journey of, you know, just spending time here. And maybe, you know, seeing, you know, we're hoping to grow some vegetables and things that Margaret would have grown. And, you know, so you're going to be eating some homemade soup that hopefully would taste similar to what she would have served. You know, things like that we're hoping to do. The other side of that is we've got a stove through there. It does work. And being a bit of a baker, I'm wanting to do like youth work sessions and things like that, where we actually do homemade bread and make that in the stove and then serve it in the cafe with your soup. You know, so it's about getting all these kind of things connected and doing all those things. So a friend of mine was telling me just yesterday about how Margaret would have made her own cheeses, would have made her own butter. So it's like, if we can bring that element into the cafe, these are the sort of heritage things that we're talking about, that it's not just a cafe on a site. This is actually going to hopefully link in. And we're hoping that the community around us that are local are going to come in and help us do that. So whether that's a mental health group, whether it's a women's group, whether it's a man's group for mental health, or Penumbra, or any of these other, you know, Andy's Man's Club, you know, any of these kind of groups that are out there that are wanting to do these kind of things, they're able to come here and enjoy the peacefulness of being here, because it's hard to describe about how quiet it is and how chilled. I have days where there's no visitors and I've just come out to do some cleaning or tidy up or whatever, and it's so peaceful and you can really gather your thoughts. So one of the biggest problems I have here is the access. So when you look at old photos, access was actually here. It wasn't down here. So it's actually causing a lot of problems. So if you're coming from the Brecon end, which is a tight bend, how do you then swing to then get up that hill? So we want to see if, because the council's come in and put this in, but we want to actually go back and say to the planning department, look guys, that's not working, all the rest of it. It's actually quite dangerous because people are trying to do turns. You actually made it worse. I know you're trying to move us away from that corner, but you've made it worse. So we need to get that fixed. So the idea being is I'd like to move the access to here, get maybe a wee fence there, so that creates more of a parking space in this bit, and takes us away from the neighbours, and means that they can get in and out without worrying about us going in and out. Take it up here. We'd love to buy that piece of land in the future, by the way, that's another one of my wants, and put a wee crossing in, put in some, like, reduce the speed, because people do come around, even though it says it's a advisory of 40, people do not listen, because it's beautiful country roads. But as you can see, we've got tarmac here, we've got all this rubble here, but we need to take it and make it smooth. And so you think about tour buses, how are they going to get in and out? You know, not just the bikers, you know, even cars, people that are disabled need to get access up. So we need to think about, well, if they can't drive the car up there, how are they going to get up there? They're going to walk. So we need to change the gradient. And so we come up here, and the ideas have been loads, from going round the cottage to you name it. So what we're thinking is at the moment, unless we can get a civil engineer to come out that actually specialises in this stuff, to come and speak to me, please, is to figure out how we can slope this and come up properly. And you'll see there is actually a line, there's photos where you can see that how much the wind and the rain have just washed away a lot of the rubble, and it's actually a lot less than it used to be. And if you zoom in, you can actually see how pitted it is from the water just taking it all away. And the farmer's been absolutely brilliant in coming, and what he does is he takes his tractor, when it's all washed out and things, he takes his tractor and pushes it all back up there. But I'm not quite sure how much is left to wash away, but it's been pretty bad. And then we've got the other things here going on, that we've got all this land on the side. We don't know what to do with it. So, you know, there is the dry stone dikes that need repaired. There's, you know, if we trimmed a lot of that, it might improve visibility around that corner. So all that kind of stuff, we need landscapers to come. That big tree up there, it's an ash tree. We need a lot of help with that. it's actually looking pretty old and like it's quite dangerous to land on the cottage. So that's a high priority for me at the moment. I'm hoping to find out from the council soon if it's actually on that risk register. And then get a tree surgeon to come in and help us with that. And what we could actually do with the wood from that is then maybe do some youth work sessions and, you know, use that wood and create things, because after all, they were carpenters. So it would really tie in with all that kind of stuff. The consequences of, well, how long are they going to wait for us to raise that money? You know, as much as we are selling our t-shirts and the hoodies and, you know, little bits and pieces, that's small change. If we can't, you know, raise the big chunk to secure it, it's going to end up getting sold or it's going to fall apart. I mean, last winter was hard on us, so it was a case of Mike wasn't well enough to come out and look after it. We're all busy, you know, doing our bits and pieces, and came out, and the damp that was in here, I mean, I think, you know, you would have seen it on our Facebook page where we've come in, we've cleaned the mold and we've done that. We don't want that again. We need to be in a position where the fires are going on, people are actually, you know, it's keeping the life in here. And because they're so far away, you know, and as I say, you know, they want to retire, it's the whole point of it. How long are they going to wait for us, you know, to come up with the money? Or how long is the cottage going to wait for us to save it? So developer comes in, it's getting flattened, you know, and it's a case of, and it'll be new build housing that you see next door, you know, it'll just be, I mean, it's a beautiful site, the views are amazing, why wouldn't you? You know, there'd be 4 or 5 houses probably on this plot that would be dumped onto it. The other side of that is you get another private buyer, and then it's not in community ownership, and then it's a case of it doesn't turn into a proper tourist destination, it turns into, you know, as it's been run, as a wee hobby, or it turns into a business rather than, you know, a community, you know, benefit. So
Well, what an incredible day it's been today here at the Davidson Legacy Cottage. We've had loads of bikes come, obviously on their way to Thunder in the Glens, to come and see this incredible piece of history. It's been great to have Mike and Nairi take some time with us. Mike, the man that, or one of the people that secured this cottage from being destroyed the first time round, restoring it, trying to bring it back to its former glory, and then Nairi and the team around her, who are now trying to prevent it from being lost for a second time. It seems very clear that the consequences of the funding not being secure for this cottage is that it's going to be destroyed. And as you saw earlier on in the episode, the history here, it would be an absolute crime for that to happen. Some of the guys were leaving earlier on, and, you know, I was getting some pictures of them on the bikes, and I asked them, you know, what do you think? How have you enjoyed it? And they said, oh, it's incredible, absolutely amazing. And I said, did you know that if it doesn't get the funding, it could potentially be rolled over by bulldozers? And they physically stopped in their tracks. That's the impact that this tiny little cottage has on you. It's very, very difficult to appreciate how amazing this little cottage is until you come here. I've been following it for over a year, just the developments and the progress that the team have been making, and it wasn't until last night when I walked in that it all made sense. So if you haven't already done so, whether you're doing it on the road to Thunder or you're in Scotland, find your way to Netherton, to the Davidson Legacy Cottage, and come and see the great work being done here. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Look out for part 2 and part 3 coming up very soon, because we're leaving here now. We're going straight to Thunder with a busy night ahead of us, and then 3 amazing days of motorcycles and party and just rally atmosphere. So for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.